France, August 1944. Fog clung to the valley like wet cloth. The Sherman's engine was off, but the hull still trembled from the last move, cold steel ticking as it cooled. Inside, the air was thick with diesel and sweat. Condensation slid down the armor, dripping onto the shells stacked by my knee. Somewhere beyond the orchard, a track groaned, slow, deliberate, German. I pressed my eye to a crooked metal tube bolted to the turret, my stupid periscope, as the crew called it. Just a bent pipe with two mirrors scavenged from a wrecked opal. 200 yards, I whispered. Panzer, or something bigger. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Even the tank seemed to hold its lungs. In that silence, I felt the weight of every order we'd ever been given, the manual, the warnings, the doctrine. None of it mattered now. Because out there, hidden in the fog, was something that could K*LL us in 1SH*T. And I was trusting a homemade pipe more than the tank I sat in. Normandy, August 1944. After St. Lo broke open, the world turned into mud and smoke. Our battalion, the 72nd Armored, had been pushing southeast toward Falaise for 4 days without rest. Every road looked the same, shattered hedgerows, burning trucks, and fields where cows and men both lay in the same stillness. Command said the Germans were falling back. They said it like it was good news. But retreating Germans meant desperate Germans, and desperate Germans brought Panthers. We were ordered to block a narrow supply road near Argenton. Intelligence claimed the road was part of a retreat corridor for the 2nd SS Panzer Division. That meant heavy armor. Panthers, maybe even Tigers. The map made it look simple, a few arrows, a shaded box marked objective. In the field, it was a swamp of craters and hedges. The kind of ground that swallowed men, machines, and orders alike. I was 26. A sergeant, barely. I had a crew of 4, Mike on the G*N, Ed on Traverse, Randy on the loader, and Pete on the radio. We were all half deaf, half superstitious, and running on coffee grounds scraped from ration tins. According to doctrine, a Sherman should never face a Panther head-on. The book said it clearly, in clean typewriter font: if you encounter a Panther, call for artillery or air support. Do not engage. I had underlined that line during training in Georgia. I still remembered the instructor tapping it with his pointer stick. Your job is survival, he said. See a Panther, call it in, and pray you're not already seen. But that was theory. Theory burned fast in France. By mid-August, the sky above Normandy was a rotating ceiling of bombers and thunder. The ground was its reflection, ruptured, wet, and alive with static. Radios jammed, lines cut, orders garbled by interference and fear. When every field commander screamed for air support, the sky went silent. The P-47s couldn't be everywhere, and artillery took hours to adjust. So in practice, the rule that kept us alive was simpler: whoever sees first, lives. Our tanks were patched with welded armor from wrecks. Tracks creaked. Some engines leaked oil so thick it turned to smoke within minutes. Every man in our platoon carried a wrench as if it were a P*N, because sometimes it was. You fought the machine as much as the enemy. The 72nd had earned a reputation for improvisation, garage soldiers, they called us. We scrounged, rewired, bolted things that didn't belong. HQ hated it. But they also kept sending us forward, which meant they trusted us to survive longer than the paperwork expected. That week, our orders were to hold the Argenton road until relieved. No one ever said by whom. By the time we rolled into position, dusk was setting in, that thin, metallic light that turns every field into a mirror. We dug in by an orchard, camouflaged with netting and prayer. Beyond the trees, the road curved down into a foggy valley. The air smelled of burnt rubber and fertilizer. Crows perched on telegraph poles, watching us like auditors. The engine clicked as it cooled. My fingers were still black from oil. Through the periscope I'd built, that crooked thing of mirrors and pipe, the world looked upside down but clearer than any factory sight we'd been issued. It had become a habit, checking through it when others trusted the hatch. Maybe superstition. Maybe survival instinct. We listened to the night, a truck shifting gears far off, artillery rumbling miles away, the whisper of wind through the orchard leaves. Orders came through once before static swallowed the frequency: maintain position. Expect contact from the east. Hold at all costs. Then the radio went dead. The fog moved in. The valley turned to milk. Inside the tank, someone exhaled too loud, and Mike muttered, "Feels like a grave in here." He wasn't wrong. Somewhere beyond that mist, something metallic clanked, measured, heavy, patient. Panther or tiger, it didn't matter. In the dark, every sound felt like prophecy. And as I pressed my eye to that crooked scope again, I realized the only thing between us and annihilation wasn't armor, wasn't doctrine, it was the chance that I might see first. Before the mud, before the smell of diesel soaked into my hands, I was a mechanic in Spokane, Washington. Not a soldier. Not even a man who thought about K*ling. I fixed things, trucks, tractors, the kind of machinery that lived longer than their owners if treated right. I grew up in a small garage behind my father's lumber yard. It smelled of pine resin and grease. Every sound was mechanical, saws whining, belts slapping, hammers ticking like clocks. When I was 12, I rebuilt a broken Philco radio because the silence bothered me. When I was 17, I turned a lawnmower carburetor into a working air compressor just to see if it could be done. It wasn't genius, just compulsion. I couldn't stand when things didn't work the way they should. People said I had the fix. Not talent, something closer to obsession. Bolts had to line up, engines had to hum in balance, even the sound of misaligned gears felt personal. Machines told me the truth when people didn't. My mother used to stand in the doorway of the garage at night and shake her head. "You'll fix the world one bolt at a time, Georgie," she said. Then she'd add, softer, "If you ever go to war, at least fix something while you're there." I didn't think much of it. Back then, war was just newspaper ink, Europe, China, names that felt like rumors. I enlisted in '42 after reading about the fall of Manila. It wasn't patriotism, not exactly. I just figured machines needed men who understood them. They put me in the 72nd Armored Battalion because I could disassemble a gearbox faster than I could salute. Training was mechanical, too: strip, load, fire, clean, repeat. The rhythm felt familiar. The problem was, the machines we worked with weren't built for mercy. The first Sherman I saw looked perfect: smooth hull, round turret, olive paint unchipped. The instructors called it reliable. But under the surface, it rattled like an old tractor. Thin armor, high silhouette, and that struggled against German steel. I remember thinking, beautiful idea, bad execution. Like a wrench missing one tooth. We trained on open fields in Louisiana. The heat warped the air until the world shimmered. Dust clung to our faces like another skin. One afternoon, during G*Nary drills, the commander barked, "Observation is life. You don't see, you die." He made us stand half out of the hatch, eyes exposed, scanning mock targets. I remember squinting against the glare and thinking, if the bullet doesn't K*LLU, the sun will. When we shipped out to England, the ship's engine fascinated me more than the ocean. 48 hours at sea and I memorized the rhythm of its pistons. At night, I'd stand on deck and listen, the steady pulse of machinery carrying us toward something unknowable. I didn't feel brave. I felt curious. What happens when machines meet chaos? France answered that question. Normandy wasn't a battlefield, it was a scrapyard in motion. Tanks burned where they stood, their turrets peeled open like tin cans. Engines still whined after the crews inside were gone. Every time I passed a wreck, I looked at it the way a doctor might look at a corpse, searching for the failure point. What seized first? What cracked? What could have been fixed if someone had noticed in time? That habit, diagnosing the dead, became a way of surviving. Every failure was a lesson. Every explosion, a warning written in smoke. The men around me stopped asking how I knew when to duck or when to fire. They started calling me Wrench. Not affection, just shorthand. By the time we reached St. Lo, I could tell which tanks would die first just by listening to the way their engines coughed in the morning. That wasn't instinct. It was mathematics. Weak bearings, thin oil, poor welds, they all sang the same tune before breaking. I never wanted command. But when my sergeant caught shrapnel outside Le Mesnil, I was next in line. I took the stripe, not because I earned it, but because the others refused it. I didn't give speeches. I gave instructions: torque, angle, distance. Machines understand orders. Men, less so. And yet, under the grime and routine, something in me still believed my mother's words. Maybe fixing wasn't just bolts and steel. Maybe, in a place where everything broke, repair was the only form of faith left. July, near Falaise. The air was thick with cordite and rot. Even the rain carried the smell of burning fuel. Our Sherman had been moving along a hedgerow when I broke the rule for the first time, not by defying an order, but by obeying one too closely. The manual said a tank commander must observe visually, from the hatch. So I did. I lifted the hatch, leaned out to mark the road, and saw a flicker of light from the treeline. Not sunlight, a reflection. Then came the crack. A sniper's round sparked against the rim of the hatch, half an inch from my skull. The noise was small, almost polite. The shock wasn't. I dropped back inside and slammed the hatch shut. My ears rang for an hour. The bullet had left a tiny groove in the steel, clean, sharp, permanent. Like a reminder. That was the day I stopped believing in the book. Headquarters insisted that observation saved lives. They were right, until the first second you were seen. Then it led you. So I started thinking differently. If a man outside the tank could see me through a scope, maybe I could see him without showing my head at all. The next morning, we passed the wreck of a German half-track near the road. Its side compartment had blown open, scattering tools and radio parts into the mud. I climbed down and scavenged, a broken rangefinder lens, a length of copper wire, and a bent antenna segment. The others watched in silence. Souvenir? Randy joked. Experiment, I said. By evening, I'd built something crude, a short metal tube bolted to the turret, fitted with 2 salvaged mirrors and a handle from a Jeep wrench. The image came through inverted, upside down, but it worked. When I leaned into it, I could see over the hedges without lifting the hatch. They laughed, of course. Sergeant, we're tankers, not submariners. Even Mike, who never joked, smirked. I told them, in a sub, at least you can see death coming. Then I turned the periscope toward the fields and scanned. It became a ritual after that. Whenever we halted, I'd adjust the mirrors, polish them with my sleeve, test the angles. The others called it Mason's telescope. HQ would have called it unauthorized modification of government property. I called it staying alive. Days later, during a supply halt, our platoon commander climbed up on my turret. "What's that thing, Sergeant?" "A periscope, sir." He frowned. "Shermans already have one." "This one looks the way I look," I said. "Not the way it's designed." He didn't argue. Maybe he understood, or maybe he didn't care. We were all too tired to care about regulations. That night, I adjusted the mirrors by the light of a flare. The glass reflected my own face, pale, lined with grime, eyes hollow from weeks without real sleep. I realized how strange it was to build something meant only for seeing what might *LLU. But that's what war was, constructing tools for fear. When dawn came, fog hung low across the valley. Through the periscope, I caught movement, faint shapes sliding along the horizon. Trucks. Armor. German silhouettes. I reported it, and the platoon pulled back in time. That crooked pipe, barely holding together, had spotted an ambush before it happened. No one laughed after that. They still called it ridiculous, but they kept glancing at it whenever the hatch felt too dangerous to open. I saw it in their eyes, the shift from humor to superstition. By the time we reached St. Denis, half the platoon had mirror fragments wired to their turrets. Not proper periscopes, just scraps of reflection pointing outward, as if the tanks themselves had grown new eyes. The contradiction was clear now. The rule said see with your head, survival said see with anything else. Every manual line about command visibility started to sound like an obituary written in advance. I began keeping notes, sketches of angles, light, distortion. My field book filled with diagrams. I wasn't inventing, just noticing. And somewhere between those pencil marks and the next dawn, I understood what no order had ever admitted: visibility wasn't bravery. It was arithmetic. If you're exposed longer than the man aiming at you, you lose. So I built my solution from what was left of someone else's wreck. That's when the rule and I finally parted ways. A week later the rain came down in sheets, hammering the turret roof so hard it sounded like small arms. We were holding a ruined crossroad outside St. Denis. Debris, for stone houses knocked open like crates, their rooms spilling chairs and wallpaper into the mud. The road signs were gone. The only directions left were craters and shell holes. Our orders had arrived before the storm swallowed the airwaves: hold position at all costs. Then the radio fell into a long hiss and never recovered. Pete worked the set with a screwdriver and prayer, but the net was drowned under static and distant thunder. The engine idled once, coughed, and I had Mike shut it down to keep our heat low. Night made a ceiling. The orchard to our left ran black as coal. Ed cranked the turret by hand, slow, the teeth of the traverse whining like an animal too tired to protest. The main G*N pointed east, then south, then east again, as if it could smell the threat without seeing it. Randy laid out what we had: 7 armor-piercing, 3 high explosive, 2 smoke. One of the AP shells was dented along the rim. He turned it so the flaw faced outward and said nothing. Intelligence reached us on boots, not wires, a drenched runner from battalion who slid into our doorway, eyes hollow, breath like steam. German armor probing your flank, he said. Panther reported on the forest trail. No air cover. Artillery pinned by counter-battery. You're it. Then he was gone, swallowed by curtains of rain. By the book, we should have fallen back to a secondary line and traded ground for angles. But there was no line, only mud and men already retreating through it. Pulling out meant exposing our belly on the road and inviting a shell into our engine block. Staying meant letting the enemy step around us and gut the column behind. There are decisions that feel like choices and decisions that feel like gravity. This was the second kind. I climbed into the commander's seat and pressed my eye to the crooked pipe on the turret. The picture swung and inverted, puddles became skies, hedges became trenches. The rain fractured across the mirrors and turned to drifting needles of light. Somewhere beyond the church ruin, a track clanked, heavy, deliberate, a predator sounding out the ribs of the ground. Another noise followed, a wet cough of exhaust cut short. German. Manual traverse only, I said. No engine. We keep the silhouette quiet. Ed nodded. His hands found the wheel and the turret crept like a clock. Randy, AP up. Pete, radio off. Save the battery. No one argued. Rules shrink in the rain. The orchard steamed. The wind pushed smoke from a burning cart across the crossroad and wrapped the tank in a bitter shawl. Through the periscope I caught a faint reflection inside the trees, low and long, too clean to be a stump. Then another, higher, like a slit of glass. The world steadied around that geometry. My stomach went cold in the old, familiar way, the body knowing before the mind. Panther, hull down, sliding along the logging trail. At 200 yards, the Sherman's front wouldn't matter. Their 88 would open us the way a can opener opens a can. The manual's voice rose up from training halls, do not engage. Call for support. I pictured the pointer tapping that line. I pictured the bullet groove in my hatch. Mike, I said, softly. Lay on where I call. Trust the pipe. He didn't ask which pipe. I drifted the image left, caught a stump, corrected, found the glint again. The rain thickened and thinned, a curtain on a wire. For a moment the trail cleared and I saw it clean, the bevel of the casemate, the road wheels slick with mud, the track links bright where they'd ground on stone. The beast was angling to take the crossroad from the side and then look down the road we guarded, the road where supply trucks would be blind and soft. If I fired and missed, we'd be a lantern in a dark room. If I waited, the line behind us would die without seeing what K** led it. I put my palm on the turret ring to feel the machine breathe. 215, I said. Low. 1/2 mil high for the bogey. On my word. The rain faltered. The pipe steadied. The shape slid forward like a verdict. There are rules written for armies and rules written for 5 men inside a steel box. I switched off the radio so I wouldn't have to hear anyone tell me which kind we were breaking. Fire, I said. K** led the radio with a twist of the wrist. The set went from rain-soaked whisper to a clean, merciful silence. No more orders. No one to tell me to wait for an airplane that wouldn't come. Mike, G***N up. Up. Ed, manual traverse only, no power. He set his palms to the handwheel. The turret teeth ticked in the dark like a clock the world had forgotten. Randy, I said, M61, armor-piercing, capped. He hauled the round from the rack, APCBC, tracer, 75mm, its paint chipped, its nose still bright under the grime. The propellant had been sitting cold, I pictured the chart in my head, muzzle velocity dropping with temperature. Call it 850 meters per second today, not 9. Noted. Through the crooked pipe, the world hung upside down. I'd learned to read it without thinking, left was right, low was high, angles felt rather than seen. The image slid, steadied, and there it was again, oblong, low, the cat's back. Panther, hull down in the slick timber, edging for the crossroad like a surgeon finding a vein. The book was shouting. Do not engage. Call for artillery. The orchard didn't care. The crossroad behind me didn't care. The trucks that would die there in an hour didn't care. Lay 215, I breathed, 1/2 mil high. Aim for the leading bogey, then walk to the hub. Mike's elbow nudged my boot, the quiet signal he was on. Ed's will turned in tiny, aching arcs. Each tooth felt through steel. Wind pushed rain across the glass and the picture went to needles. I counted, 1, 2, waiting for the curtain to thin. The cat paused, listening to the ground. I could feel its crew, careful, methodical, certain they were unseen. The casemate's edge caught a gray lick of sky. Distance 200. Maybe 210. Close enough to smell the metal. My thumb found the safety as if it belonged there. I saw my mother's note in the toolbox back home, fix something if you go to war. There are many kinds of repairs. On my word, I said. No correction until I say. Randy's hand hovered on the ready rack. He was counting his own breath to mine. The periscope steadied. The mud shone like tinfoil where the track bit a stone. That was the weak arithmetic: track, idler, hub, immobilize the beast, then think about K*ling it. I broke the rule because the rule did not know this valley. Fire. The recoil pawls clapped the turret ring, the G*N slammed back and came home with a steel cough. Inside the tube, the tracer burned a thin line through rain, then the image kicked with white and smoke. I held my head still, riding the scope through the bloom. Impact low front, track link, forward third. A hard spark, then a flail of metal. Hit, track, Mike rasped. Hold, I said. Don't celebrate. Watch for traverse. The cat snapped sideways, beautiful, terrible mechanics, the left tread biting soft ground, right tread slipping free. It slewed nose in toward a pine and checked there, angled wrong, its G*N hunting for a muzzle flash it hadn't yet found. Randy, reload AP. Up. Ed, 217, quarter mil low, same wheel. Through the pipe I caught a second glint deeper in the fog, higher, turreted, not casemate. Another cat, turning into us along the same trail, muzzle nose down, cupola slit like a coin. Panther. The book would have told me to smoke and withdraw. The ground told me we were past that. I breathed once through my teeth, tasted cordite and wet canvas. The turret crept. The handwheel clicked. My world narrowed to edges and angles, turret ring, mantlet chin, the shallow seam where armor met ambition. Ignore the first, I said. He's crippled. New target, turret ring. If you don't see it, trust mine. Mike didn't nod. He never did. The G*N settled the way a thought settles. Fire. The second sh*T went with a flatter crack, the kind you feel in your molars. Through the scope the tracer stitched into the fog and vanished at the Panther's jaw. A bright, mean spark. Not a K*LL. A bite. Up again, I said. AP. We're committed. Randy's shoulders banged the racks. The shell clanged into the breach. Up. Silence outside, except for rain and a distant, hollow clatter, the sound of German optics waking to the fact that someone in the orchard had just refused to wait for permission. I laid the crooked pipe into the seam again, steady as a level. I had already broken the rule. All that was left was to finish the repair. For a heartbeat nothing answered us but rain. Then the crippled Panther tried to twist free, its left track biting, right track dragging iron across stones. The casemate swung, hunting for heat. I kept my eye in the crooked glass and watched for the breath between movements, the fraction when armor shows its ribs. AP up. Up. Ed, 216. Hold the wheel tight. He did. The handwheel's teeth purred against his palms. The cat lurched, nose canted toward the pine. The bogey I'd hit was sheared, the track sagged like a torn belt. For an instant the side plate came square in the scope, wet, gray, almost gentle. I didn't think. I read angles. Fire. The G*N slammed my chest through the seat. The tracer stitched clean into the rear third of the side hull, just forward of the engine bay. The effect was ugly and precise, a buckle, a cough of black, then a flat orange that ate backward under the deck grills. The casemate froze. A rectangle of hatch blew open and closed again like a bad breath. No return sh*T. Only a thin scream of metal cooling wrong. One, Mike said, not proud, just counting. New target. I swung the pipe past the burning timber. The second shape had grown teeth, Panther, turret edged left, muzzle lifting from the trail. 200 yards, maybe less. The chin mantlet glittered with rain, the turret ring sat in shadow, a dark coin at the base of the cupola. AP up. Up. In training they teach center mass and repeat. In France you learn seams. I walked the turret a hair right. quarter-mil high. Ring. Set. Fire. Impact at the jaw. A bright spit, then a deeper sound, armor flexing against intent. The Panther checked, then tried to traverse. The ring snarled. Not jammed yet, only wounded. He felt that, Ed muttered. Again. Same place, one click low. Randy's boots hammered the deck. The breech swallowed the round with a wet iron kiss. Up. Fire. This time the spark punched and lingered. The turret hitched, stuttered, stopped. The barrel hung between us and the rain, blind, a finger that could no longer point. I heard their engine climb, desperate torque against a gearbox that wanted out of the fight. I said. We're not gentlemen. Randy grabbed yellow. Up. Ed, walk me to the base of the mantlet. We're going to make it breathe smoke. The shell burst against the face like a door kick. Shards hissed into the visor slits, a pale gout pushed from the roof fan. The Panther rocked, reversed, slewed, instinct, not doctrine. That gave us what we needed, a strip of side plate behind the first road wheel, wet and thin. AP. Fast. Up. Fire. The tracer vanished under the skirt and came out the far side with pieces that weren't rain. The engine note leapt, then stumbled into silence. Flame took the rear deck slow, like someone lighting a furnace under damp wood. 2, Mike said. Thunder wouldn't stop. It rolled around the stone shells of the houses and settled under our ribs. I held the pipe on the second cat until movement meant bodies, not metal, 2 men falling from the left hatch, 1 crawling, 1 still. No more G*N. No more silhouette hunting us through the orchard. Traverse wide, I said. Don't trust easy miracles. Ed turned the wheel. The turret obeyed like an old watch. Randy wiped cordite off his lip and stacked 3 more AP within reach, as if the act itself could buy seconds. Pete listened to the radio that wasn't alive and still said, "Net's dead," as though that mattered. 30 seconds, maybe less. 2 German tanks done and the crossroad still ours. The rain eased to a finer needle, the orchard breathed again, wet leaves ticking on the hull. I didn't feel triumph. I felt arithmetic completing itself, inputs, outputs, a sum that happened to equal survival. The periscope glass was fogged at the edges where my breath had lived. I wiped it with my sleeve and watched the road we'd kept unbroken. Behind us, engines, American, light, hurried, trucks groping forward through rain toward whatever counted as a front. If the cats had slipped past us, the trucks would have been coffins with headlights. Instead their silhouettes came and went between trees, small lives moving because 5 men and a crooked pipe had seen first. Reload to even, I said. Check racks. No one spoke of medals or rules. We listened for the next noise that wasn't ours and found only water, and the faint, relieved clatter of supply chains keeping time with the rain. An hour later the fog lifted enough to show what we had done. The orchard smoked like a forge. 2 hulks lay broken across the trail, one still popping with dull interior detonations. The Jag Panther's G*N pointed at the sky, blackened, its barrel split along the seam like peeled fruit. The Panther had burned clean through, rain hissed on its deck plates and turned the ashes to paste. The valley was quiet except for the sound of trucks, American, a full convoy creeping west, headlights hooded, wheels biting mud. I climbed halfway from the hatch, the air sharp with cordite and wet bark. A lieutenant from the lead truck walked up through the ruts, his jacket half-buttoned, face ghosted with exhaust. He stopped when he saw the wrecks. Jesus, he said. We thought we were done for. Who hit them? I tapped the side of the turret with my knuckle. We did. He stared, then looked past me at the pipe bolted crooked above the G*N mantlet. With that thing? I shrugged. Didn't hit them with it. Just saw them first. He didn't laugh. Maybe because he could still smell the death in the air, or maybe because he understood what luck looked like up close. He gave a curt nod, waved his drivers forward, and the convoy rolled through the crossroads in single file, axles groaning under crates of fuel and ammunition. We watched them pass. Each truck that disappeared into the mist felt like proof of something, maybe that rules could bend without breaking everything. By nightfall the story was already moving faster than we were. A recon jeep from battalion stopped by, 2 corporals soaked to the bone. One leaned out and said, "Command heard you took out a pair of big cats." That true? Depends who's counting, I said. The driver smirked. They're calling it the Mason trick. I almost corrected him, said it wasn't a trick, just geometry, but the jeep was already gone, tires spinning water. When we limped back to the temporary depot outside Argenton, the mechanics met us with the same eyes you use for ghosts. Our Sherman's paint was flayed from muzzle to hull. The periscope pipe was dented, edges burned from muzzle blast, but still intact. Pete set it on the workbench while they checked our suspension. Someone asked, half joking, if it worked both ways. Only forward, I said. That's enough. They logged the engagement as 2 confirmed armored K*LLS, no friendly losses. No commendation, no reprimand. Just a note, unverified optical assistance employed. I think that line amused the clerk more than it worried him. That night I cleaned the mirrors with engine oil and an old rag. My reflection came back faint and doubled, 2 sets of eyes, one real, one bent through glass. I couldn't tell which looked older. Across the field, other crews were experimenting. I saw one tank with a bicycle mirror wired to its cupola, another with a whole shaving glass taped behind the ventilator dome. Improvised vision sprouting everywhere like fungus after rain. Mike said, "They're copying you, Sarge." "They're just tired of dying blind," I answered. We ate cold rations by the track. No one spoke of bravery. The men had started a quiet superstition. Every time we halted, Randy would polish the pipe's outer rim as if it were a relic. He said it kept the glass clear. I didn't stop him. Near midnight a staff officer arrived in a jeep, uniform pressed despite the mud. He inspected the wreck reports, looked over our tank, and finally said, "Headquarters wants to know how you spotted them so fast." I pointed again to the pipe. He frowned. "That's not standard issue." "No, sir." "Then don't mention it in the after-action." "Understood?" "Yes, sir." He signed a form, tucked it under his clipboard, and left. His taillights faded into the rain. By dawn the phrase had changed again. In the chow line someone whispered, "Mason's tank shoots before it sees." It spread the way good lies do, quietly, efficiently. I didn't argue. Maybe every machine needs a ghost story. When the battalion moved east 2 days later, I left the periscope bolted where it was. The others wanted to name it, paint it maybe, but I said nothing. A tool doesn't need a name. It just needs to work. Still, as the engine turned over and the orchard disappeared behind us, I caught myself glancing through that warped little window again. The world came back upside down, trees hanging from the sky, smoke drifting upward like roots. Maybe that's how you survive war, by seeing it the wrong way around, long enough to recognize it before it recognizes you. Within a week, the crooked pipe was no longer a joke. Every platoon in the 72nd had one, some made from stovepipes, others from artillery shells cut open with hacksaws. The men gave them names: Crow's Eye, Angel Tube, Widowmaker. Officially they didn't exist. Unofficially, they became doctrine. Our supply officer, a man who measured life in forms, tried to standardize them. He asked for blueprints. I handed him a scrap of paper with 2 rectangles and a single note: mirror at 45 degrees, bend until fear feels manageable. He didn't file it. By late August, word drifted from other battalions. Tankers near Le Bourg-Esti, Leonard claimed a Mason scope saved them from an ambush. A letter from a repair depot mentioned field vision modification per 72nd example. Someone even sent a request for replacement mirrors, specifying approved dimensions as per Mason device. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or hide. In a war where equipment orders took weeks, rumor moved overnight. The periscope traveled faster than any command. It was copied in steel mills, garages, field workshops, everywhere men wanted a fraction more distance between their eyes and death. When the battalion finally halted near Argenton for refit, an ordnance officer from headquarters came through. He was clean, pressed, and suspicious. He circled my tank, scribbling in a notebook. "Who authorized this?" he asked. "No one, sir." "Then who installed it?" "I did." He peered through the pipe, frowned at the warped image, and said, "It's backwards." "Yes, sir," I told him. "But it works forward." He didn't smile. Bureaucracy rarely does. He left muttering about regulations and non-standard optics. We never heard from him again. That night, the mechanic crews built 3 more. Not out of rebellion, out of faith. The superstition had become gospel: see first, live longer. When we pushed east toward the Seine, my crew had stopped joking about submarines. They treated the scope like a crew member, fragile, temperamental, necessary. Before every move, Mike would tap it twice for luck. I pretended not to notice. We fought small battles then, villages without names, crossroads that existed only until the next map revision. The Germans were retreating fast but not empty-handed. Their armor struck like the tail of a dying animal. Each time, the scope gave us seconds. Seconds became survival. One afternoon, near Trun, a Panther appeared at 400 yards. I saw its glint before anyone else. That second of warning gave us the first sh*T. We hit its track and left it burning in a ditch. The crew bailed out with hands raised, faces gray with smoke. I remember thinking how young they looked. My own reflection in the periscope was older than theirs. After fillets closed, the battalion rested on open ground. I dismounted the pipe for the first time, cleaned it, and wrapped it in cloth. The mirrors were pitted from dust, the joints rusted. It had survived more than most of us. I didn't know whether to keep it or bury it. War ends slowly, like a machine winding down. Orders fade into rumors, uniforms fade into work clothes. When it was finally over, I carried that pipe home in a duffel, tucked between a wrench set and a photograph of the crew. Customs asked if it was a *P***N. I said it was a souvenir of looking the wrong way. Back in Spokane, I opened a garage. Customers came with tractors and farm trucks, their engines coughing dust. I fixed them quietly. Sometimes I caught myself angling a wrench toward light, checking reflection the way I once checked a battlefield. Habit, not memory. Years later, my grandson asked about the war. He was building a model tank, painting the stars with too much white. "How did you beat the Panthers, Grandpa?" he said. I told him the truth as simply as I could. I didn't beat them. I just looked first. He laughed, thinking it a joke. Children always do. The old pipe sits now in a glass case at a small museum in Tacoma. A crooked relic, rusted at the bend, mirrors clouded to silver ghosts. The label reads, Field Periscope, M4 Sherman, Normandy 1944. Recovered from the vehicle of Sergeant George Mason, 72nd Armored Battalion. Sometimes visitors tap the glass, trying to see what the world looked like through it. They can't. The image has long since fogged. But I remember. The valley, the fog, the first glimpse of a cat in the orchard. The instant when a rule broke and 5 men kept breathing. Machines forget nothing. Men just learn to see differently. He broke the rule and saw death before it saw him. That's the whole story, stripped to its bolts. War wasn't courage or luck, it was vision. A second too slow and you were scrap, a second early and you were legend no one spoke of aloud. They called me the man who saw first. I never liked the title. It made the act sound deliberate, heroic. It wasn't. It was a reflex, the same one that makes a mechanic tighten a bolt he knows will rattle loose. Now, when fog settles over the valley behind my house, I still catch myself leaning forward, eyes searching the pale distance for shapes that don't exist anymore. The glass in that crooked pipe turned dark long ago. But when I close my eyes, the reflection is still there. Inverted, trembling, waiting. The world's seen a fraction of a second before it ends.